What's up, Bearcat fans? Welcome into another episode of the BCJ podcast, presented as always by our great friends at the Holy Grail. The weather's getting hot. The Reds bats are hot. Get down to the Holy Grail for a nice cold Cincy Light. Whenever you go down to check out the Reds this summer or any other reason you're down at the Banks, head over to the Holy Grail. Support our partners that have supported us for a long time. 50 cents of every Cincy Light sold goes to Cincy Reigns. So another great way to support UC athletes and grab some food, cold beers. Nothing can be better in a Cincinnati summer. So with that, welcome into another glorious Wednesday night of the BCJ pod. I'm Dave Simone, co-hosting tonight with Keegan Nickerson, filling in for Chad, who's on dad duty down in Florida. And we are joined by Bearcat alum, Bearcat defensive line coach, Walt Stewart. How are we doing tonight, Walt?
I'm doing well. I'm excited, man. First podcast, so I'm excited about it.
Well, we hope that it's the first of many, and that afterwards you're not like, I'm never doing that nonsense again. So hopefully we have a good time, and we appreciate you joining us. We've talked to a lot of coaches, so it's good to have someone new, and especially someone who, went to UC, understands what the red and black is all about. So excited to get a chance to talk to you tonight.
No, I appreciate it. It's always an honor to be able to talk about the Bearcats. So I'm all in.
Keegan, why don't you kick us off while I retweet some stuff so everybody can get in this room and talk to Walt.
Yeah, the thing that I'm kind of most curious about is, it was kind of a direct from player to coach role in your career and your track. So I think this would be your 11th season as a coach, if I'm correct, 11th to 12th.
Yep.
When you think about all the stops and all the experience you've gained, how much do you think you've changed as a coach or maybe even a person just trying to relate to these college athletes and trying to coach them in the best way?
Man, well, it's funny because, my first coaching job was the Belk Bowl back in 2012. I was out there, substituting my teammates in a bowl game, and I didn't know that I was going to, be a coach or anything like that. But, throughout the years, just taking bits and pieces from the different stops, and learning, and then trying to carry that forward and create my own brand, so to speak. It has been an awesome journey. And then, you just got to try to relate to the guys, as they come in different, waves and generations. So, something that I always try to do is just meet them where they're at, and that has been something that's benefited me at all my stops, of just kind of seeing where those guys are particularly at in their life, whether they're a freshman, a sophomore, married with kids, whatever the case may be, meet them where they're at, and then trying to, to give them the best version of myself and to continue to develop them as a man, and as a football player. So it's been a heck of a journey, man. You say 11 years. I'm like, goodness, man, I can't believe I've been doing it this long already. But no, it's hard to get away from the game. So I enjoy it, man. And, we try to develop these guys the best way that we can.
We had Keegan and Chad talked to Derek Wolf last week. So another defensive lineman. I want to ask you, he talked a little bit about it. I wanted to ask you of learning under Coach Stripling, and did he have a lot of people obviously know your injury, what happened at UC, and were you very much wanting to go into coaching as soon as that was kind of put in front of you? And did Coach Stripling have any thing to do with that in the way that your guys' relationship was?
Well, I'll say this: Coach Strip is one of the best that I ever seen do it with a whistle on his neck. So, Coach Strip was the real deal. Pretty much, my foundation of what I am as a coach, that all comes from Coach Strip. His approach, his relationship with the guys, his toughness, I mean, Coach Tripp was a tough son of a gun, man. And, he just brought that passion out in everybody. So he really impacted me, and how I developed, as a coach. But, I really didn't have any intentions of coaching ball. Butch Jones at the time was my head coach my senior year. Before our senior season, he would always tell me like, "Hey, Walt, if you ever want to get into coaching, let me know." And of course, at that time, you're like, "Man, I'm going to the league. I ain't coaching on ball. What we talking about, man? I'm going to the league, baby. Like, I ain't worried about that." And sure enough, everything kind of fall the way that it did. And that summer, after I graduated in December, I was like, you know what, let's try it out, he always told me, just let him know. So I drove down to old Knoxville, Tennessee, worked a high school camp, came back home, thought about it, went back down, worked another camp. And then that was the beginning of my career. So it was a 6 months hiatus in there of trying to maneuver. I was still chasing around, football, with the combine and, pro day and, arena ball, Canadian, just trying to figure out if it was something that I could still get away with playing. But, once that dust settled there, I says, a lot of the coaches too would tell us, hey, get into the game while you're young, hey, do it while you're young, do it when, you're fresh out of ball, or you might not necessarily, have family, children or a wife or significant other yet. So that was kind of on my heart as well. So I was like, hey, let's try it. And man, I've been 11 years that went by like that. Now here it is. I'm coaching back at UC. So it's been a pretty awesome journey.
You coached at UC under two different staffs. As the coaching change happened with Coach Fickle going to Wisconsin and you getting introduced and getting to know Coach Satterfield, was there anything specific that you were like, I definitely still want to be at UC? Take us kind of into where you were, because we always hear about head coaches and everything, but the assistant coaches get forgotten a lot of the time of that they've got families and they got to find jobs too. So like, how did that work for you as someone who I can imagine probably felt like, had more pull to want to stay than a lot of other coaches would have. But, take us into a little bit of the dynamic from an assistant standpoint when a change happens and how you ended up being able to stick on Coach Satterfield's staff.
Well, when the head coach changes, that puts a lot of things in flux, whether you're going, whether you're staying. And, part of the reason, why I came back here to UC was the fact that I knew what was coming. I understood that, we were going to be going from American to the next level, Power 4, Power 5, whatever the hell you want to call it. That was a challenge that I was aware of, on my way entering the door here at UC. And that was a big draw for me to come back here, along with, obviously the opportunity to work with Coach Fick. He's a defensive coach. So, those were two big factors that brought me here. And, in our industry, you could be anywhere, any year, any season, any league. That's just how it is. It's wide open. And, where I'm at in my career, I want to be able to build and establish something long-term. And, even as a player, I felt like we was the best. I mean? That wasn't a saying. That was just the bottom line. Like, I really believe that. Like, when I woke up and went to the weight room, like, yo, we're probably the best football team in the country, So, I felt that way about UC coming back here. Like, yo, we're going to get this thing done. So when everything kind of went the way that it did, as a position coach, you kind of left with a couple options of, hey, do I go? Do I try to stick around here? And with me just getting here and knowing where this thing was going, I still wanted to be a part of that. A couple of guys that I've always looked up to in the profession, a lot of those guys kind of built their own way. They did it the way that they felt was best for them. It wasn't chasing logos. It wasn't chasing leagues. And, the film speaks for itself. The production speaks for itself when it comes to what we do as coaches. So I actually had opportunity to meet Coach Satterfield, Coach Brown, and a lot of his staff in 2019 when I was at Northern Illinois. Now, it's one of those scenarios where, you know, I remember you, but you damn sure don't remember me, right? That's one of the scenarios that it was when I was at Northern Illinois. We had went out to App State to do some clinicking and learn a little bit about what they did on defense. So I had already met a good chunk of those guys already. And, you know, the years go by, people move and do their thing. So I had already had an awareness of how Coach Satterfield was, you know, the type of tree that he was coming from. So, you know, that was another factor in trying to stick around here. And fortunately, I had a chance to, you know, kind of, you know, interview with Sat and Coach Brown at the time, you know, Coach Nichols, Coach D. Nick, and, you know, get to know those guys a little bit. And then I was able to stick around, you know, which was awesome, you know, for me and my family and what I'm trying to do with my career. So I'm really appreciative of that. But, you know, it's tough when you're going through those changes, man. And, you know, like I said, you can be anywhere, anytime, any league, the way this thing is going now. And, you know, you want to make sure that as a position coach that you are in a position to where you're going to get a consistent batch of players. And, you know, the guys that I inherited when I came to UC was another reason why I'm like, man, I want to finish, you know, working with a Malik Van or Briggs or, you know, the back end of the development of a Dante Corleone and Rob Jackson and all those guys, you know, finishing, you know, helping them guys finish their careers here. So that was a big deal. So everything worked out. And again, you know, you never know, but everything worked out the way it did. And, you know, we still doing what we got to do, you know.
Absolutely.
In a similar vein, there was a time where you were without a defensive coordinator for a little while. I'm curious of that limbo where you're kind of wondering who's going to kind of basically be your boss. And then also, what's your impression of Tyson Veit, how he runs a defense and kind of how he communicates with players in his own unique way?
Well, you know, when the coaching staff turns over, the first thing that comes to your mind is just, okay, how do you keep your players from being all scattered, right? You know, and you know what we do, you know, it's a constant, you know, development in all aspects of these guys, and so just trying to keep them guys at bay, you know, as well as still be able to recruit and go get talent and keep talent interested until we sort ourselves out. So that's always a dance, but you know, with the guys knowing, okay, hey, these are the coaches that's going to be here, that kind of helped out a lot. And then from a recruiting standpoint, it's football, you know, especially nowadays as a defensive lineman. I mean, these guys got to be so versatile in what they do. So playing in another scheme is never something that should be able to scare your guys off, especially if they understand the big picture of it. So, you know, those were the things that you had to dance with. And then, you know, having Coach Veit, you know, come on over has been awesome. You know, he's old school, at least in my opinion, as far as, you know, just the toughness, the consistency, the diligence, right? You know, that's something that is really this refreshing. You know, that's kind of how I am to see, you know, pretty straightforward, you know, pretty black and white. You know, that's really awesome to have a guy like that. And then he got tons of experience where, you know, he's had a ton of success, you know, at, you know, his previous place playing defense and just being able to see the game from a different perspective and a different scheme and try to see if we can go ahead and capture some of the things that they did, you know, at his previous stop. So, you know, Coach Veit is awesome. I mean, he is sharp as a tack. And he's extremely consistent. You know, great dude. You know, easy to talk to. And he got a little. He got some stuff to him now. So he get after it. You know, he get after it, which is refreshing to see. You know, because you know how it is nowadays. Like these guys, you know, it's just so different from over the past 10 years the way the players develop and how they, you know, take coaching, the relationships and all that stuff. And, you know, on defense, you still got to have that edge, you know, and that's something that you definitely know that coach has. He got that edge, which is really, really good. Awesome for the Bearcats.
For your group specifically on the D line, what are some of the biggest changes in Coach Brown's scheme to Coach Veit's scheme?
I would say that the biggest difference is alignments. Last year we were 404, so all of our guys were head up, so our ends and our nose all play head up. Now, our guys would be, back in 5 techniques on the edges, which is, extremely different as far as the way we want those guys to play. Both defenses, we still want them to be able to play vertical up the field. And both defense, we get a lot of freedom, to kind of do what we need to do in the pass game. So that to me is a huge difference when you're playing half a man versus head up. But we still get to control a lot in the pass game. We still get to do a lot of things there, to kind of get the quarterback, flustered, so to speak. But just the alignments, those initial alignments are definitely different. And, it just allowed the guys to convert easier and pass. But, in the same token, we still playing up the field and being disruptive in the run game.
Taking the new guys out of it, when you kind of review, I mean, obviously last year didn't go great for any part of the team.
No
so when you kind of did your self scouting and talked to your guys going into this new season, at least the returners, what were some of the things that you guys talked about as far as like, here's where we need to get better, like here's where we didn't do well enough from our group specifically, and here's how we're gonna kind of grow in that regard?
The number one thing that we kind of kicked this thing off, especially in the D-line room, this off season, is we got to be together, and not saying that we weren't, but with college football now, there's a huge emphasis of togetherness that you got to have in order to be, championship caliber, to be, upper tier caliber. And with the way that our rosters turn over right now, you got to teach guys what Miami of Ohio is. You got to teach guys why Pittsburgh is a rival. You got to teach guys why we don't like Louisville. You know what I'm saying? And you could be doing that 2 separate times. You could be doing that in January when you get guys. You can be doing that in the summer when you get guys, right? And hell, the guys that you are teaching all of these new things to might have just got there. So that to me was something that I felt like as a defensive line group, we could have did a better job of, and let that permeate the rest of the defense, as far as just, building that true bond. And, you got to work a lot harder at that. And what that allows for you to do is it just allows for more accountability, right? It allows for, okay, I'm playing truly for my brother. I understand the nuts and the bolts of what we're trying to get accomplished here. And that was something that I felt like, we could have did a better job of just being a little bit closer together. And, obviously, just being more productive. You get a guy drafted in the 7th round, you feel great about it. You got another guy that's all Big 12. You win 3 games. So obviously, production is always something that you can point at. Being more together and being more of leaders is something that you can point at. And this offseason, we kind of really, really kind of redefined that as a team, and what it means to have the seed ball on your chest. And I think a lot of that starts at the line of scrimmage, whether it's with Coach Cardwell or whether it's with the D-line. At the end of the day, it's football, man. The big guys run the show, you know what I'm saying? And if we can show, guys how it's done and bring that thing every single day, it'll permeate throughout the team. And I think that's something that we really been trying to capture this offseason, and it's been going really well with Coach Nico in the weight room and all the things we've done to continue to build this thing out, in the way that we want it.
When Chad and I talked to Derek last week, he brought up, the Sugar Bowl season was great. And then you go into year 1 under Butch and you guys win 4 games. Everyone's pissed. There wasn't really discipline or much of a buy-in. And then there was a shift going into that next year, which was a great season. What do you remember about that shift and how guys changed and how they started treating each other differently? And then do you kind of see a similar vein with the team this season after the struggles last season?
Oh yeah. So we had a players meeting. So we had a players meeting, and it was just like old school, like, everything, finger pointing, blaming, my bad, I'm taking responsibility, that was my fault, like confessions, like it was all that. And I don't know if it was designed for everybody to get on the same page, and then you get 100 guys in the room, and it's just like chaos. But as a brotherhood, you got to go through certain stuff together in order to figure out, okay, what we want to do. And one of the big things that concluded out of that meeting was, at the end of the day, we put the helmet and shoulder pads on, and at the end of the day, it don't matter what's going on. The ball's going to snap, and we all got to be on the same page. So something that changed for us really was that the players had to go the 90 to meet those coaches where they were at, because it was such a cultural difference between Butch and Brian Kelly. I mean, it's not even close, right? Like, I mean, you're talking about two different coaches in two different ways. Both of them are extremely good at what they do. But from a cultural standpoint, two different guys, two different ways that you lift weights, meeting structure, everything was so different. And because of the success that we had, who is this guy to come in here and tell me, I got to be behind the line? We just won 12 games. What are we talking about? Like, dude, I've been starting for 2 years. Like, what are you telling me that I ain't already doing? I already got 2 conference championship rings, right? So you had to put a lot of that ego to the side, and then you had to find that common ground of, okay, how we going to do this together? And that's something that I can say that I've been proud of, because I get both ends of it, right? I get the coaching end, and then I get, okay, these my damn Bearcats in. How is these boys handling it? And we have come a long way with building that trust, that respect amongst the guys, amongst the coaches, in all aspects of the program. And that's been really refreshing to see. And, you can see it from the players of, like, okay, they understand now, they get it. And it takes time. You know what I mean? Like it is what it is. And I remind those guys all the time, like, yo, we went from 12-1 to 4-8 to 10-3. So this all the same guys. It wasn't like the portal existed back in the day where you just bringing it, like, nah, the same guys that was out there that didn't play great versus, Florida, is the same guys that was out there that didn't play great versus the teams we lost to in that 2010 season, or whatever that was, 2010 season. All right. It's the same guys that was out there in the 2011 season when we was, running roughshod and beating the hell out of folks and beating the hell out of North Carolina State in the net. I mean, them was all the same players. Only different was this, right? What's happening between the ears, and the trust and respect that you had around the people that you was working with. So, that's something that we've definitely seen, no question about it. You want to see it materialize on the field, but that's step one. You know what I mean? Like, that's the beginning. Okay, good. All right, now let's level this thing up through the summer and throughout training camp, and then get ourselves ready to go for September.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask about it's a very basic question, but it probably has a very detailed answer. Getting pressure on the quarterback. We all know that affecting the quarterback is probably the best way to win in college football. How do you guys take that step from last year to this year? Obviously, you've added a bunch of new players, but just from what you're teaching the guys and what you guys are working on, and I don't even count sacks. I'm just going to say overall pressure. How do we put more pressure on the quarterback in 2024 than we did in 2023?
Well, I always like to just the best thing that I would say really is first off, you gotta have an awareness if it's run or pass, right? That's number one. Number two is just being more aggressive and going after it when you see it. Now that we are in 5 techniques, that's going to obviously make it a little bit easier because you are on edges, right? In today's college football game, it's just a lot of 3 down front, a lot of very, a very a lot of non-traditional fronts, I guess. So, creating rush angles, from a 5 technique versus a 4 technique versus a 2 technique, versus a 3, that stuff is all different. So something that we've really emphasized a lot, starting off pre-spring into spring, is being able to understand pre-snap down the distance and, be able to look at the O-lineman and get a beat on, okay, when they want to throw the football outside of the obvious pass situations, right? Like the obvious pass situations, okay, whether you scheming something up, where you whooping a guy, that's different. But, we talking pressure. So you got to be able to recognize, okay, this is a situation. And something we spent a lot of time on this spring is just being able to see it, recognize it, and go after it. And you're not going to always be right. Okay, you're going to be, trying to run a pass game and it's a run play, right? You're going to be thinking it's pass and it's a draw or wherever the case may be. But allowing those guys to be a lot more aggressive when they see it. And a lot of it starts with recognition, in a 3 down front. A lot of the pressure is on the guys. Got to work together a lot more than in the 4-man front, because you're not going to get the one-on-ones consistently the way you do in a 4 down, and you're not going to have the rush angles that you will consistently in the 4 down. So, it puts a little bit more pressure on our guys to be able to see it. Okay, this is a pass scenario. Hey, let's get into this or get into that. That's definitely a little bit more pressure on them. But at the same time, that's all part of the job. So, I'm actually really excited to see, how our guys get after it this fall with some of the new stuff that we implemented. And, we got our packages and all that stuff to bring the heat whenever we need to. But we really emphasized that this offseason. And again, you still can get to them with 3, and that's why we still can recruit the guys that we recruit, because they watch us practice and they watch the film and they're like, okay, all right, we can still get after this thing, even out of a 3 down look. So pre-snap recognition, critical, and just going, man, be aggressive and go get it. And, now with our alignments, we got a little bit better rush angles. And just taking advantage of those situations that's not obvious pass, right? And still getting there is something that we've been talking about a lot this offseason.
You guys made multiple additions out of the portal on the defensive line. One of the guys that I'm curious about, kind of went under the radar, is Darian Varner. And I feel like he had a pretty good spring season with you guys and was able to continue to develop along. What have you seen from him? And kind of what role do you expect him to play on that defensive line, and what does he really do well?
Varner is man, so I recruited Varner, back in the day at another stop. So I've been knowing him since he was 10th grade, high school, young puppy, 220 pounder. But his superpower is his quickness and his football intelligence. A lot of people forget, he was first team all conference, an American, he's a 10 sack guy. So he has a lot of versatility. He could play in the boundary, he could play in the field. He does got a knack for being in the backfield and causing disruption. So, I see him as a guy that can really scratch where it itches. If you need somebody at the field, he can do that. If you need a 3 technique, he can do that. If you need a 5 technique, he can do that. And then also being able to make plays, before they happen, that's something that is really undervalued, at the collegiate level, because there's so much just raw talent of, okay, this dude's a beast, like whatever. No, this dude, he's a real football player. You know what I'm saying? And I think that, being here with us is going to only improve his game because of the way we'll use him. And then also having him, he impacts the rest of the room, right? And that's something that I always look at with the guys of, okay, what else, what all do they bring to the table? right? And between leadership, communication on the field, those are the things that you can't have enough of. So, I see him as a guy that's going to be able to play, out or to the field, to the boundary, inside, outside. He's going to have a little bit of chance to do a little bit of everything. And, again, his superpower is his quickness and his football intelligence. He's a really, really smart football player.
They're on the roster now, officially on GoBearcats.com, so I'm going to ask you about them. So some freshmen. Obviously, we don't know, offensive, defensive line, very hard to get involved as a freshman. But just from when you were recruiting them and they're all, none of them are spring guys, so obviously they haven't even really done any football stuff yet. But just give us a little bit of background on a few of the guys. We'll start with Garrison Butler.
Garrison Butler, man, high production. He is a 285 pounder from Jacksonville. Smart kid. He is I want to say he finished second or third in the shot this past year down in Jacksonville. So he has good football background, and he's a productive D lineman. So his senior year, he had almost 85 tackles at the nose spot, probably about 15 sacks, a bunch of TFL. So he's a high production interior D lineman. Really good kid. He was a senior leader. Good football intelligence. Work his butt off. Really, really good football foundation coming into the door. So I'm really excited about him because, he's one of them guys that's going to always find the football and get after it. And then, he coming to us from Jacksonville. And then, Marquez Parker coming to us from Arkansas. Marquez Parker might have had, in my coaching career, one of the best camps I've ever seen as for a high school kid, D lineman. He came to our camp last summer, and he put so many guys in the trash can that it was just like, yo, all right, we got one here. And, we did what we did to hold on to him. Football junkie. All right. He's the guy that's in the building all day, talking to the trainers, talking to the strength coach, talking to the equipment guy, talking to random people that's in the building. He gonna be on his phone, watching highlight clips, watching video, like extremely, extremely intentional with his football when it comes to football. And he's just got a passion for the game. And he's a 260 pounder walking in the door. Strong as all get out, super, super explosive, very disruptive. He's a disruptive player. He's going to get up the field. He's going to have people hanging all over him. He's going to be throwing it around. So, a part of his development is just going to be to control the fire, right? Like when that ball snap, he going to boom. He going to blow some stuff up, but we just got to get him to, direct it the right way. But really good kid, though. Funny as all get out. He's a good one. And then Lindrick Barber coming to us from Ola High School down in South Georgia. Lindrick is a big athlete, man. He's 300 plus pounds, all of 6'3", 10-inch hands. He can play inside, he can play outside. He got a lot of versatility, naturally strong. Lindrick is extremely quiet, right? He's a quiet dude. He gonna be sitting in the back, kind of just soaking it all in. He's probably the less talkative, I would say, of the three. But he gives us a lot of versatility in his size, right? He's an athletic big man. So he's one of them dudes that can play nose all the way to 5 technique, right? Because he got good length, he got good athleticism, he got good size. And I've been impressed with his conditioning, right? A lot of times when the big guys come in, they don't realize how much running it is and, the intensity that it takes. But he got some basketball in his background, and he's done really well at 305 walking in the door. So I'm excited about all of those guys. I think they bring a little bit something different to the table. But the thing that they all have in common is just their physical development walking in the door is different. I mean, the lightest guy's 260 pounds walking in the door. now we talking. You know what I'm saying? Now we getting guys a chance to come out here and compete right away because they don't got to put on. Hell, I had to put on 25 pounds, just to make the bus. We ain't worried about that with these guys. We teaching them, we getting them stronger, all right, and then we letting them compete.
Lindrick had a pretty nice body recomposition, didn't he, before he got to campus?
Yes. Put together. I mean, he's a good-looking dude, man. He's a lean 300-pounder, man. He's just one of them. He's one of them humans that you look at him, you do like a triple take. He's like, hold on, you 300 pounds? Like, really? Like, yeah, coach. And then you see him running and moving, and you see his size. You're like, okay, like you're gonna be fine, man. Like, to be a freshman like that, there's 3 freshmen that you wouldn't better pick him out the lineup when they stand with the rest of the guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously you were already recruiting those guys when we went into the Big 12, and just like every position, you're looking for biggest, tallest, fastest. When you're recruiting, but in that first season of the Big 12, going up against those teams, did it? I don't want to say open your eyes or change your philosophy, but how did that? Seeing how the defensive line equipped themselves against Big 12 play, did that shape anything like with the 2025 class of the type of guys you're looking for? Or is it kind of not matter regardless of what conference you're in? You're always looking for that guy with the traits and the ability.
No, it definitely matters. It matters, man. I mean, because it's just so the biggest challenge really is when you go from playing, American Conference schedule or a G5 schedule, just to be general, G5 schedule. It's not the same humans out there. You know what I'm saying? It's not the same size. It's not the same length. It's not the same consistency. I saw some old video. I go through and get pictures. I saw some old video of my freshman year when I was here. And we had like 6 NFL D linemen, and they all were big. Everybody was 6'3". Everybody was 260, right? And so, and what I'm getting at is now that you playing in the Big 12 or the P4 or whatever you want to call it, you're going to see a consistent type of human. Like, you're going to see a 6'6", 315-pound offensive lineman pretty much every week in those non-conference games. You're going to see some big guys out there. You're going to see some big athletes. So, the challenge now for us as we make this transition is, okay, we have won with, 6-footers up front. We've won with, guys that might not have been that long up front, right? Well, over the course of a 12, 13 game season, I mean, you're going to wear down. And a lot of the size that we hunting for up front is to allow for you to just withstand that, right? And everybody's going to have different traits, and you're not going to always get the cookie cutter player. But it matters when, I'm a 6'3", 260-pound defensive end with an 80-inch wingspan, and I'm going against a guy that's, 6'5" and a half, 315 with probably 84, 86-inch wingspan. That's them 2 big bodies that's going at it versus being a 6 foot, 250 pounder, 6'1", 200. It's just 2 different humans that's battling. So for us, we try to get longer, right? We want to get a lot more length. We also, want to get bigger, just bigger in general. And we've been able to kind of do that throughout the course of this offseason. And then when you see everybody up front live and in color and in person, you realize, like, okay, like this is a different level of athlete that's out here, regardless of team. It's different humans out there. So that's all part of the dance of growing this thing, through the Power Four. Which I think we've done a really good job of in this past 25 class, and moving on, we've done a really good job of targeting those guys at all positions.
Dante, his work speaks for himself, but obviously as his coach, I'm sure you're still pushing and saying there's so much more you can do. What are the, like, when you have a guy that is gotten the accolades that he has gotten and has the notoriety that he has had, what are the things that you work on with him to kind of take it. I mean, you're going to work on him with everybody, but like,
Yeah.
take him to a next level where you're like, you can be a first round pick or you can be a top 50 pick if we work on, if we can take steps in these little areas. What are the areas that in his game he's really working on this year to kind of even set himself apart even more?
Well, for me, again, it's just my philosophy on development. With a guy like a Dante who has accomplished so much in his college career, he's growing to the point of leadership, right? And what that does is once you start stepping into a leadership role and you start to get into that position, like, all right, not only do I got to handle my business, I got to still have an awareness to help pull others along. I think that's a really special place as an athlete. I don't think everybody necessarily gets there, and everybody handles that leadership piece different, and for me, when it comes to Dante, his communication, the way that this guy is talking right now versus 3 years ago, his presence, the way he carry himself, it's been really impressive to watch that development and, to challenge him in ways to bring others along. It's going to innately help your game, right? If I'm working with a young freshman about footwork, I damn sure better have decent footwork. I can't let that slip, right? And that's kind of where he's starting to push himself into. And then we got the specifics, at least football wise, that we talking to him about, now that us switching back defensively, right? So footwork changes as a big guy, that's something that's like mandatory minimum. Your footwork got to stay clean. And that's something that me and him talk about. Being able to play half a man is a nice challenge that we've presented to him in different ways that we can use him, right? Being a traditional nose guard, when you kicking at centers, and you playing head up and you in your comfort zone, great. Okay, what happens when we put you in the 3 technique? What happens when we put you in the shade, right? And then, continue to develop pass rush, right? And, again, I'm excited about what we'll be able to do up front in that aspect of being able to help the team. Just because it'll flow a little bit cleaner for what we've been developing this off season. But those are the things that I'm looking at him and saying like, okay, we're gonna continue to keep hammering this leadership because it's going to innately improve you in everything that you're doing, right? We're gonna continue to hop on the footwork because the scheme changes. That's the first thing up front, in my opinion, as a D lineman. Okay, how am I getting to where I got to get to? And then being able to play half a man. All right, hey, I can play a shade. I can play, a 3 technique, and put him on the edge and also developing, consistency in pass rush. So he's done a great job, though. I mean, he's answered the bell. He's one of our harder workers on our team. He's a football junkie. He gonna give it to you every chance that he got. And he gonna wake up early as hell and he gonna do it all over again. That's just who he is. So I'm glad that I get a chance to work with a guy like that and help him finish up his career.
You guys are in the middle of official visits for the 2025 class. We obviously can't talk about specific players, but just kind of like from your seat when the official visit's going on, what are you talking to players, parents, whoever's there with them? Like, what are kind of the key things that when you get to sit down with them, a defensive lineman that you want to come to, you see the kind of the main things that you like to talk to them about?
I guess the main thing is the people, right? I in this day and age where, again, it's wide open. Coaches and players can be anywhere, anytime, doing anything, any league. I'm going to keep saying that because that's a significant change. That's a real change. So you got to know the people that you're dealing with, right? Because some of these guys that either transfer, that bounce around, right? Once they are in college, the people wasn't part of the reason why they was at that situation, right? So when you leave from certain institutions to go to other places, they might not have the same resources or have the same stuff, but the people is a draw for you now all of a sudden, right? So we try to get that figured out on the front end, because now when those guys come into our program, you know what type of guy that they are. They know what type of program we run and what type of people that's here. And I think that's truly significant for the high school guys, because, again, they're going to get pulled in so many directions, whether they play great or whether they don't play great. It's still going to be wide open. So if you are around the people that you want to be around, a lot of clutter and distraction gets eliminated. And it allows for those guys to stay focused on the main thing, which is developing as a person, getting a degree, and then being the best football player that you can be. That becomes a lot more clear when you know what the people that you surrounded it with, right? So that's something that, we've done on the front end before we bring them in, and that's something that we kind of continue to dive into when they show up. And then the second thing that I always like to hit on personally, right, is people know, but they don't know about UC. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, yeah, I saw. Like, people don't know what's been happening for the past 15 years. It's just the winning and the NFL players and the graduating guys. And, a lot of guys are aware of it. Oh, yeah, I get it. But it's a long line of guys that have played 10 years in the NFL, or guys that have graduated, that's running their own business, that's doing it at a high level, that went to UC, that played ball here. And that's something that I'm always educating them on, of like, listen, the reason why so much pride around here is because of what has been going on for the past 20 years, the 15 going on 20 years. So a lot of that is just educating them of like, yo, when you step into this arena and you put that CPAW on, it's going to mean something to you. So you need to know how this thing has come to where it's at now, so that when you show up here, you understand why it's a lot of pride in being able to be behind that line when you're supposed to be behind that line. Or it's a lot of pride in having a good GPA, right? And so when you can put that out in front of these guys, now you can see, okay, is this something that they're interested in? And it makes it a lot more clear for them to see, okay, that's why this place be rocking. That's why all these guys is crazy about playing in the net, or, people are developing the way they are because of the things that's been accomplished over the years here. So those are two big things for me that I always like to, try to hit on and identify. And, we've been able to really attract some good talent and acquire some good talent. And, the plan is to keep it rolling.
Do you show them your highlights, and when you took the ball away from the UConn quarterback, and you're like, that could be you?
Only if they ask. Listen, I'm in the listen. Only if they ask me. The ironic thing is all of the film is there. So whatever you want to watch, you can watch practice. You can watch whatever you want. You can watch one-on-one inside. All the film is there. And if somebody is like, hey man, coach, whatever, because this is a different generation now. I mean, you tell them, hey man, this is Coach so-and-so. They already Googling and all that stuff. They on it right now. So if somebody, feel like they want to get down, they want to watch tape and they want to watch 5-4 from back in the day, hey man, you
should put on the clip in a meeting sometime and see how long it takes them to realize that. Be like, man, I found this clip of this dude back in the day that he just took the ball away from the quarterback. Check this out, and see how long it takes him to realize it was you.
So a good story for you. When I first got here, under the previous regime, we had a D staff meeting, and we all sitting in there, and then coach gets up there and he start going and he's showing like, hey, here's how we play on defense, right? And then I'm sitting there watching, and then all of a sudden it's just me from like Pittsburgh, like grabbing the guy, throwing him on the ground, getting off of blocks and chasing the ball out and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, so it's definitely on there, but I just let the film speak for itself, man. I coach football now, so that's what I stick to.
Well, hey man, you got a lot of good clips to show them if they want to see a lot of good teach tape.
No question.
Keegan, you got anything else for Walt?
I'm all good if you're all good.
Yeah, I mean, I think we Zach might be a little mad. We kept you a little bit longer than the 30, but I appreciate it.
I didn't see the tap out. We were good. I didn't see the tap out.
He was waiting for it. No, I
Well,
appreciate it, man. It's
but
all
I
good.
know you guys are crazy busy right now, so we
Oh, yeah.
appreciate the time and look forward to. I try to get out to Higher Ground every so often. Keegan will
There
be
you
out
go.
there, so look forward to seeing you guys and seeing the D line and watching them put some dudes in the dirt this year.
Good. Awesome. Well, again, guys, I appreciate it, man. And anytime, and go Bearcats, baby. Go Bearcats.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Coach.
All righty. So do I just hit leave or what?
Yep, you can
just
just
hit leave? Okay.
exit out.
All right.
No problem.
All right, guys. See you.
Thank you. All right, that was defensive line coach Walt Stewart. Had some good stuff on the incoming freshman that just got here. Within the last week or two, and what we can look forward to seeing from the D-line group as a whole as we move closer and closer. We're going to start calling up some of these Big 12 people and start doing these previews. It feels like we're right there, about ready for football season. So
counting the days. We got less than a month until media days.
Yeah, you heading to Vegas?
Absolutely.
There you go. You
Chad
get
is so mad that he can't go.
Get you a villa at Caesars.
Oh yeah, definitely. No, I'm getting a timeshare at some Hilton hotel off Airbnb.
A timeshare? What? Like you're only allowed to stay there like certain hours in the day, and then somebody else
4 hours.
use it.
I can take a nap. And I have to.
I did see. I don't know how I came across like Facebook or something. It was like the cheapest hotel in Las Vegas, and it was like you walked in and it was 6 like bunk beds in one room, and each person got like their own bunk.
Yeah.
and you had no idea who you were sharing a room with. I was like, I don't know about that. So
I think that's Vegas is the last place I would do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me. Let me see here. So we will we'll switch it over. We'll talk some other stuff here in a second. But first, we got to give a shout out to our sponsors at Turtles Brew. Excuse me. Chad, I don't have the ad read from last week, so I'm totally winging this one. I know they are in over 100 locations throughout Ohio. I know they have these awesome new pouches. There's four flavors. I'm a personal fan of the lemonade tea variety. I think that one's great. Perfect for summer by the pool. Perfect for tailgating as we get into football season. 100% of the proceeds, or I shouldn't say, is it 100%? I don't want to.
No.
Some of the proceeds.
A portion of the proceeds.
A portion of the proceeds go to saving the sea turtles. They got to make some money. So obviously not 100%. This is not a non-profit organization where they're running. But visit
zero sugar, zero carbs, gluten-free, bourbon-infused tea does help save the sea turtles. Go to www.turtlesbrew.com for more info and locations. They are all over Ohio, though.
It wouldn't be a Bearcat Journal ad read if one of us didn't screw up like the promotional price of the team ticker or how much money goes to saving the sea turtles.
I got you.
So I thank you. Much appreciated. So Keegan, what do you want? What else do you want to talk about? You're out in Colorado, is that right?
Yep. Was it Rocky Mountain National Park or I was in Colorado for a wedding in Frisco and then went to Rocky Mountain National Park. So,
Frisco.
Yeah.
That's Frisco, up there.
Colorado. Yeah, it was like an hour and a half drive from the airport, but it was,
one of my best friend's stepbrother, him and his family live in Frisco. That's the only reason I know what
really.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole state's freaking awesome. I'd never been there before, so I had a lot of fun.
Are you still there?
No, I'm back home now. Just got back this afternoon.
Okay, excellent. Well, I think at least since the last time we did a pod on Wednesday, I believe 3 commitments?
Yes.
In the 2025 class?
Paul Nelson, CJ Crite, and Michael Skinner joined the boat.
Yes. So where do you want to start?
Let's start in order. So I think it's CJ Crite was the first one, linebacker out of Georgia. Played wide receiver for Lincoln County High School. Also played safety, kind of the star hybrid linebacker safety kind of thing. Just a super athletic, super long kid who flies around the field and tries to make plays. 3-star, 87 rating by 247. And I think he's just that kind of high ceiling guy that has a nose for the ball that Cincinnati likes to get after. Just kind of a natural football player who wants to make as many plays as possible. So I think it's a really good get. And, they have a specific type for that star position. You saw it with Jaquan Sanks. I think Crite is 6'1", so I think he's got maybe an inch on Sanks, a little bit taller, a little bit lankier, but he fits that mold really well, kind of the Mekhi Miller mold. So
it'll be interesting with the 3 safety look, and then I keep going back to when we had Zach Grant on. He seemed to point out that linebacker was going to be a pretty big focal point in the 2025 class. So you have Crite, you have Paul Nelson. I think there's some probably more versatility with Crite as is he a linebacker? Is he gonna, what does he grow into a full-time? Is he a third safety? So, and I think we're seeing that with some of the other guys that they're recruiting. You're just going to see, I think, a lot of guys in this class that probably not entirely sure, at least we aren't going to be. I mean, they're going to tell us, this is what we're kind of looking at this player as, but the guy could get to school and grow another inch or two and put on 25, 30 pounds, and then it totally changes exactly what you think of him. But I think we're going to just see kind of a lot of that hybrid linebacker safety type guy. I could still see 2, 3 more linebackers being added. We know that they have a lot of interest in Grant Bierman.
Yeah.
Another, I think it's Terrell Holcomb from Columbus area is supposed, he said he's visiting this weekend. We'll see when all that stuff becomes official later on in the week. He's another one of those guys that's very much in that 6'2", 6'3", just over 200 pounds, could be a linebacker, could be a big safety if that's someone that they, want to go on. So I think there's a lot of guys in that realm that we could still see added, and how that gets shaken out is, a massive TBD.
Yeah, and even Eric Gale, a lanky guy at 6'3", 215, he could just come on and put in 30 pounds of muscle and then be roaming in the middle of the defensive the defense for Cincinnati, because body recompositions are not a rare thing at this school.
No, that one would surprise me a little bit, just because I've seen him play, and that dude is an edge all the way.
Yeah,
and he's also fairly new into football, so the just pin your ears back and get 6'3", 250, 260, go kill the quarterback feels like a very well assigned role for him.
Yeah.
But it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility. We've seen it UC before. With guys, and Brian Wright, became an inside guy at a non-prototypical, size, and I think they're stacking themselves up pretty good with this last class with guys like Simeon Coleman and Monte Whedon and some of the other dudes, and then what they're going to do at linebacker in this group, they should be pretty firm. I would hope they'd be pretty loaded with that room for years to come. Yeah.
And then the next one is Michael Skinner, a wide receiver out of Riverside High School in Greer, South Carolina. Really, really good relationship with tight ends coach Josh Stepp, who is basically a connoisseur of South Carolina high school football, knows where all the talent is, has all the connections, has all the relationships. So that played a key role in getting Skinner out of South Carolina. 4-star, one of the highest 4-star wide receivers that Cincinnati has gotten, and maybe program history, or at least the 247 era. Because when you go back and look through all the rankings, there aren't a lot of highly rated wide receivers that Cincinnati was getting out of the high school ranks.
No.
But again, a converted running back who this past season was his first as a receiver. So you keep on, you ride the trajectory, and it's just going to get better and better for him. And I said this to Chad on the nightcap, but I'm going to be very impressed with this staff if they are able to keep him and get him to signing day, knowing how quickly he's progressing. He's getting the notoriety. He's been on visits to Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina. So I know a lot of programs are probably going to be calling for him. So if Cincinnati can get to signing day, especially if he has a really, really good senior season, I think that's going to be a huge win for the Bearcats, because this kid is just going to go up. And I'm also starting to realize the type that Cincinnati likes to get is kind of, I don't want to say diamond in the rough, but just kind of relatively unproven. Those really raw guys at the position that have the tools that you can kind of identify. Zeb Kinsey, quarterback from Toronto, Skinner, CJ Crite a little bit, plays both sides of the ball like we just talked about. So I think this is a really good get, and kind of a really high ceiling guy that could come in and make a difference early in his Cincinnati career.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an indictment or anything. I just always try to kind of chuckle at it that 3 weeks ago he was unranked, and now he's the third best player in the state of South Carolina. I'm like, no one had any idea who the hell this kid was in the end of May, but now all of a sudden he's like the third best guy in the whole state. Okay. Yeah. and you just said he was a converted running back to wide receiver, and 24/7 lists him in a tight end. Like, what are we doing here?
I mean, he's at 6'3". So I see the tight end thing if he could keep on growing.
I think he's like a pure perfect X wide receiver. Like, yeah. I mean, that's the big bodied outside guy that you want to complement your whatever little slot guy, and then your other wide receiver that your Y that you can just kind of do everything with.
Yeah,
your ball, your ball winner, your back shoulder guy, like he's that to me.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a yak monster. Like, yards after the catch is going to be a big thing for him, because when you look on film, he runs like a running back. Like,
they gave him how many handoffs this year, even when he was playing wide receiver. I mean, he had tons of his clips are either handoffs or screens that he takes for long runs. So yeah, it's not all just air yards and get tackled.
Yeah. Yeah, he told me, he's like, this is my second full season at receiver, and I feel like I'm actually comfortable. So this is probably going to be a really big year for me. So follow his stats, see what he does, watch his film, because he's going to continue developing. And I think he's someone that UC should be really excited for, especially for the crowd that says that UC doesn't get recruits over big schools or any 4-stars. So you should be really, really excited for this kid.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you want. I mean, if it's, if you get a commitment from a kid in May or early June, and then like there's no buzz about him, I'd be more, I want guys, I want teams coming after our, like, not coming after our players because I want them to obviously sign with UC, but like that tells me that our staff is identifying coveted guys, and if another staff is slow to realizing that I think works in our favor.
Yeah, absolutely. Paul Nelson, the third one, a Princeton linebacker, just runs like a safety, like a defensive back almost. Probably one of the more impressive movers on the defensive side of the ball that I've seen out of this commitment class. And he hits extremely hard, like kind of the Simeon Coleman comparison, just how hard he hits. Has a nose for the football, kind of like Crite. I think he just has the tools at that linebacker position. He's at 6'2", so taller than Simeon Coleman, might be a more natural fit as a true freshman, that you don't have to kind of worry about that part of his game. But with the height and how well he moves, I think this is another really high ceiling guy that me being out of Cincinnati is very excited to go watch him a lot because you don't get a lot of commitments out of Cincinnati guys. So out of this group early, that's very promising that we have a lot of content to go over. We'll probably be double barreling it. You'll be at Withrow, I'll be at Princeton.
Oh yeah,
Just have two threads going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's actually one that I probably know of these new three guys. Like the one I probably know the least about. I haven't had a chance to really dig in yet. But I mean, I've seen a couple clips where he got through the line incredibly quickly, and it just kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier with what Zach said about linebacker probably being a spot that they are going to go a little deeper on with this class because of the new alignment, and you got some older guys that will be on the way out, and so you need to restock. So you've got 12 guys, so probably another 12 or so to go. I know that there's several guys that have visited that they hope will end up committing. You always got to track where else they're visiting, and then you've got another visit, hopefully another big visit weekend this weekend. They are currently 27th nationally in the recruiting rankings, and I always like to go by average player rating because at this point in time there's an incredible imbalance in class size. You've got some classes that have 15 guys and some have 3. But the class with 3 is all 4 stars, but they're going to be ranked lower in the full national rankings because they don't have as many points. So UC is 8th currently in the Big 12, going by average player rating, with the gap from 3rd to 9th being less than a point. So it is very, very much still in the air of how these, however you want to take rankings and ratings and whatnot. And it just magnifies what we just talked about with Skinner, like his rating changing so drastically in 3 weeks. Like that could change for any of these guys. There's camps going on. There's who knows what else, is happening around the country. So a lot of stuff still in flux. Like a lot of what they're putting together so far, I think still some. I mean, Zach said that they don't really put a board together from taking position out of it and saying this is our number one target, regardless of position. But I think there are still several guys that have visited, several guys that are that I hope do visit, that could make some serious waves, some serious impact with this class altogether. And I think you're looking at last year's class and this year's classes. If this staff is going to have success and this staff's going to be here for a while, it's going to be on the backs of these two classes, because I don't think they're going to be necessarily hoping to bring in 40-something new guys again next year. If that happens again, then we're probably in trouble.
Yeah.
Dave, what's it say to you when you look at the other rankings here stacked up and you see Cincinnati with the lack of higher talent that you see some of the other schools having and still up there at number 4?
I don't know. I think that's again. That's to me, that's how many I gotta. Yeah, I think you're all TCU's always going to recruit high. They're probably going to be a top 3 recruiting Big 12 team in this new Big 12. But there's no doubt in my mind, Keegan, you brought up the whole diamond in the rough thing and the potential. I'm cool with that, but there also needs to be that can't be the vast majority of your class. You've got to have some dudes that you've seen it, what it looks like they're your battle. And it's tough to say Big 12 teams because we just don't recruit the vast majority of the Big 12 footprint. But it's like the Big 10 schools or the SEC and ACC schools down in Florida and Georgia. You know, we can have the discussion and the runaround and you can tell me all about all the 2 stars and 3 stars, but the stars do matter. Like, the blue chip ratio is a real thing. Now you have to be good to get those type of players. So, you know, but I deal less in like comparing to other Big 12s because it's so razor thin. Like I said, I mean, you're separating 8 classes by less than a point right now. So if UC was 3rd instead of 8th, it's still only like 0.96 points better than 8. Like, is it that much difference? I mean, I'd be tweeting this shit out nonstop, like, because it's a good way to like drum up excitement in the fan base and whatnot. But again, I'm not sure how, especially in June, how much it really matters.
Yeah, I think that's the tough part when everyone kind of expects them, or they're disappointed when they're not getting 4 stars, mid 4 stars. Like, that's pretty much not going to happen after a 3-9 season after the first year of a head coach. Like, if you do that, you have one of the best recruiting departments in the country. So I think that's why I am very, very much looking forward to this season, because basically everything is on the line in terms of recruiting philosophy and who you're identifying talent. You're loading up on FCS guys out of the portal. Like, if a lot of these guys prove to be contributors, then it's, keep on plugging away at this. You're going to win more games. You're going to start having 4 and maybe even 5-star visitors for game day visits, and then you're going to be in competition for those guys. But if some of those guys flop and it's just kind of like, okay, well, do we need to rethink what's going on? That's when it gets into a difficult conversation, because you're going to go into your 3rd year still struggling to get 4 stars because you're not winning as much still. So this year is absolutely massive for basically the entire coaching staff and the program, because a lot of these guys are expected to contribute right off the bat. And if that isn't the case, then I think there's going to be some trouble going into 2025.
Yeah, for sure. I worry, or I look at the rating less to me, because I try to watch the very limited tape that we get access to.
Yeah.
Like, and understand that it is a, it's on Huddle, it's highlight tape. Like, I'm not sitting down and watching trying to find an entire high school game of some kid. But I'll watch their 5-minute cut up. But I'll watch it in the sense of, like, I'm not really watching what the result of the play is. I'm more so just watching the player and what they're doing specifically. And if it's a Mikkel Skinner long run on a screen, I'm probably like, well, yeah, he's running by dudes like me in high school or something. So, but no, it does strike a balance, and I think I put it on the board the other day. Like, you shouldn't be like over the moon no matter what about every recruit.
Yeah.
You also shouldn't be like negative, to me at least. Like, you shouldn't just be negative because of a ranking or a rating, or like who else maybe has offered. Like, there has to be somewhere in between where you're not just accepting everything as the greatest thing ever, but you're also like, and not everybody's gonna sit down and watch a little bit of a kid's film. Like, that's what they probably rely on me, you, and Chad to discuss. Just like, shit, half the time, the first time I know who some of these guys are is like when they come for a visit. So
yeah,
it's a balancing act, but I think, I liked a good bit of what they did in the 24 class, especially in the secondary. So we'll see how how many of those guys are going to play this year. I would guess outside of maybe Sanks, I wouldn't expect many considering how many portal guys they brought in the secondary. So if you do see a bunch of freshmen playing, then we have another question to kind of ask.
Yeah.
But then, in this 25 class, I think it's a little early to like pick out elements that we especially, we might especially like. I do like the two defensive linemen. I like Eric Gale a lot, and I like Benny Patterson a lot. Obviously, can't talk about them couldn't really talk about them with Walt, but I like both of those guys a lot from what I've seen. So
yeah,
I
think one question I'd want to, if we could go back in time, I would want to ask Zach like how he balances watching film when he knows the kids that they're going up against are like 5'8", 140, and they run like a 5'2", 40.
Right.
Like, how do you balance like them just dominating them? And I think one thing I would do, one thing I would assume they would do is just look at how often they're getting beat and how badly they're getting beat when they do get beat. Because you kind of just have to have the balance of the good and the bad. I just think that some kids are flashy and then they take plays off, so they produce, but then it's kind of inconsistent. While other guys are, producing and then they're being competitive when the spotlight isn't on them, whether it's wide receivers blocking, offensive linemen getting downfield, running backs pass pro. I think that's the thing that is the biggest difference maker for a lot of these kids when they'll see a low 3-star guy, see the consistency and the tools, and then kind of pull the trigger on, okay, he's good enough to play for us. Let's offer him a scholarship.
Look at you putting your resume together, trying to get on staff. I see you.
I can look at a monitor for 8 hours a day. It's not that hard. I can read a spreadsheet.
I see you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very similar to, I'm big into the NFL draft, and if a guy is like an FCS guy or of a very low level, a G5, it's like, is he kicking dudes' butts? Especially if it's like an FCS guy. Like I remember when Jared Verse was transferring from Albany to Florida State. You just watch him and you could tell he was going to be good because it's like he's kicking literally everybody's ass on every single play. So, if you're in a very small, Zeb, our quarterback commit, I didn't even know I've lived in Ohio my entire life, had no idea there was a town in Toronto, Ohio.
I got off the phone with him at about 6:45. I'm going to have a story about his OV up tomorrow. There's 40 people in his graduating class.
Yeah. So, he's not exactly going up against the GCLs and the, other guys. So it's like, well, what does it look like? I mean, is he, because but again, he's a UC recruit. So like, I'm pretty sure none of his other teammates are UC level recruits.
Yeah.
But he's out there, I'm not going to say by himself, but like the competition probably isn't great compared to him as a 6'3", 235-pound high school quarterback. But he's probably got self-deprecation. He's probably got a bunch of me's running around there at wide receiver.
Yeah, but the thing about him is arm action and arm strength speaks for itself.
Dude's got a rocket.
Yeah, like you can have an empty football field and see him throw the ball and be like, okay, that's next level.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. I mean, yes. But you can't just watch his highlights and then look at his stats because it's like, you're getting recruited by like some of the best teams in the country, and you're playing schools that don't even have like 50 kids to go out for the football team.
Yeah, and then when he's not throwing it, he's 220 running people over, like running.
That was the biggest thing I noticed. I think I might have put the picture up on the board or talked about it on the board, but there was a picture at a camp he was at with Ryan Montgomery, who's in the 2026 class, who's committed to Georgia from Findlay, Ohio, and then another highly sought-after quarterback. And Zeb just looked like a different dude.
Yeah.
Like, he is so put together for, and maybe that translates to a quarterback. I know there's other teams that maybe don't see him as a quarterback that like him more on the defensive side of the ball. But I'm taking that athlete 10 times out of 10.
Yeah.
And because, you asked me at was it spring practice, how long it was going to be till someone recruited by UC played quarterback, like at high school.
Yeah. How many years?
And that's not a UC thing. Like,
it's everyone.
It's almost everyone. I mean,
I would like to look at the
numbers
next year and see how many quarterbacks across the Power 4 conferences was signed and then developed through their program and then started week 1.
I mean, I can think of I'm sure there's obviously going to be more, but off the top of my head, I can think of 3 right away. Carson Beck at Georgia, Nico at Tennessee, and oh crap, who was the other one that I just thought of? I don't know. But even like Ohio State's got a transfer quarterback.
Yeah.
USC tried to get a transfer quarterback. Like, it's the way it's going, man. So give me the athlete, and if he works out to be a great quarterback and works his way in there, great. If not, hopefully he loves UC and goes, does something else. Maybe can play, because he can clearly play another position. He's not just
He was recruited by Oklahoma State and West Virginia to play linebacker.
I think Penn State. I don't know if they've offered him, but they were interested.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's it'll be interesting as this portal thing continues to go with the quarterback position. You got guys like Dylan Gabriel who third school, making a ton of money. He's not an NFL quarterback, and he's going to be. I mean, he's a backup, maybe. Maybe
you would have said the same thing about Penix.
Well, are we talking Washington Penix or Indiana Penix?
Before Penix's first year at Washington, you would have said he's not an NFL quarterback.
He had shown me nothing to intimate that he was an NFL quarterback. He certainly, regardless, I don't think he was the 8th pick in the draft NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
But even if he does make it, he's going to make what, probably $3-4 million at Oklahoma and Oregon.
No, combined, yeah, probably.
Combined? Yeah, I wouldn't leave either. If it was no sure thing I was getting drafted, and I can go to Oregon and have a real damn good chance of going to the playoff this year, and yeah, it would be a no-brainer. But yeah, the quarterback portaling is certainly interesting, and you are seeing way fewer guys that go into their school and end up being their starters.
Yeah, I am going to be interested to see which of Samaj Jones or Zeb Kinsey or whoever signs is at this point, you're surprised if they start a game for UC, to open a season. Because if they don't start a game to open a season, it's because there's quarterback issues, and then they're making changes. But to come in and actually be the guy before a season, you almost are always year to year looking for a quarterback out of the portal because it's such an important position. So,
yeah, we'll get into it when we get into Big 12 previews and everything. There's almost every starting quarterback that I can think of outside of Daniels at Kansas. Avery Johnson, he bumped out Will Howard, so yeah. he's gonna be one.
Jackson Dart at Oklahoma.
Yeah, but he's not our problem anymore.
Yeah.
He's the SEC's problem now. Yeah, but that's how good you have to be.
Yeah.
Like you've got to be like a
5-star.
Like Carson Beck is going to be maybe the first quarterback taken next year in the draft. Like you've got to be that kind of dude to come in and get the job early, and be good enough to keep the job. That's one thing. It's one thing to like beat out the guys that you have, but you got to be good enough to keep the job to where the staff doesn't feel like in the neck, that they need to go address it with a transfer.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I'm looking forward to seeing what Sorsby does, because this free agency thing is very, very exciting. So, yeah.
What's up, Chad?
Ask us a question, Chad. Ask us if we had the Turtle Brew read.
We did okay. We got help from Aaron. We got help from Aaron. But I don't know what else you got going on. I know you've been gone, so you probably. I mean, I hope you haven't been paying too close of attention to what's going on.
I mean, there's not a ton going on. Just a lot of official visits. I talked to Zeb Kinsey, and that'll be up tomorrow. Really long conversation with him, updating about Elite 11 injury rehab, stuff like that. What's up?
Are they doing anything fun on the OVs that you've heard of from anybody yet?
Jeff Ruby food.
Yeah, according to the articles, they're eating a lot of food.
It
seems like every dude talks about the food.
I know in the past they've done like Top Golf and different things like that. Are they doing anything around the city to like just entertain the kids or anything like that?
Oh, I need to ask that. I know, yeah, Top Golf is a thing that they've done in the past, but I haven't asked like specific activities. They just keep on talking about the food. Like Jaden Clark said he was having chest pains because of how much food they ate. It was all just like
mildly terrifying.
Me and Jaden Clark have something in common.
Meat sweats.
Absolutely. Okay, so you never know what you're getting with whether it's a high school kid or even when they get to UC. Like we never know what we're getting when we ask for interviews with guys.
Yeah.
How have some of these guys, has there been anybody that you like really enjoyed talking to and were entertained by your conversations with them?
Grant Bierman is always awesome. I always love my conversation with him. He gives me a ton of stuff and is always super eager to talk. Zeb gave me a really good answer today. Don't want to give too much away, but
yeah.
I asked him, is there dialing back after the Liz Frank injury in terms of running? He goes, no, someone's going to feel something like week 1. I was like, okay.
Because he went 3 games last year?
3 games and ran for 160 yards. So it might have been 180. I think it was somewhere around 60 yards a game. So I want to try to get out there or go to an away game that's closer to us and watch him, because I think he's just going to be a super entertaining watch, as wild and crazy as he'll play and just overshoot people down the field, maybe throw a couple picks, like rolling outside the pocket, but still it'd just be entertaining to watch him to develop. Jaden Clark is always good. He's always super eager to talk and, update on his recruitment. His knee rehab has been a really long process. Missed his entire junior year because he injured his knee in May. And he's just now kind of getting to the point where he can ease into one-on-ones. Can do everything non-contact, but he has to do one-on-ones in a controlled sense. I had some kids ask me to do it over text, which I don't love doing.
No.
Because they answer it like a robot. But yeah, it's awesome. These kids are always really excited to talk. And I kind of think back of when I was playing baseball in high school, and the one interview I got after a game was one of the coolest things that's ever happened. So that I love to give these guys a platform that they can talk about.
Do you have to try to ask questions so you don't get the Tiger Woods response?
What's the Tiger Woods response? Yes.
So he's gotten much better at it as he's gotten older and not as, but like when he was in the thick of like domination, if you asked him a yes or no, a question that he could answer with yes or no, he was giving you yes or no.
Yeah.
So like you had to like figure out your questions to try to get something more out of him, or else he was, if he could answer yes or no, that's all he was giving you.
Okay, well, most people know to not be a D-bag about it and just do an open-ended answer. So 90% of the time I'll ask a yes or no question and they'll answer it like with the information that I want. If they just say yes to one of my questions, I'm like, all right, this is going to be a board story. This isn't going to be an article.
Well, yeah, some dudes just don't want to talk or aren't or nervous or don't want so yeah, it's always interesting.
Didn't they teach you in Indiana not to ask closed-ended questions? You always ask open-ended questions. What are you doing?
Just don't ask. Tell me about, or can you talk about? That's always those are my biggest pet peeves. And everybody's favorite Bengal announcer, Dave Lapham. I love him to death, but he never actually asks a question in the locker room.
No.
Like when he goes down to the locker room post game. I love it because he's always like, you guys ran the ball real well today. And I want someone to be like, yep, we sure did.
Did you see that video of Zach Johnson, I think it was, when the reporter asks, and he's like, talk about this golfer. And he goes, okay, do you want to ask me a question about him?
Was that this week?
No, it was a while ago.
Okay. What do you want me to say? Like, you got to like ask, like, talk about it, okay? Like what? Like his short game, his personality, his past relationships. Like, where do you want me to go with this?
All the Big J journalists quoted that tweet, and they're like, "Yes, keep on."
Yeah, but then they're the same ones that I hear every press conference asking those type of questions.
Yeah, that is funny you say that, Aaron, because before I knew it was a bad thing, the first question I ever asked in a basketball press conference, I said to Mike Woodson, I said, talk about Trace and his rebounding. Verbatim, that's all I said.
Oh, God, yeah.
And then I went back to my keyboard shaking like this.
It's so good. Is that how he answered you? He's good at
it. He gave robotic. He wasn't even there in the post-game pressers. He gave robotic answers every time.
Yeah.
He knew from your facial hair that you were green.
Oh yeah, no, he knew.
He was used to this hard-hitting New York Knicks reporter questions.
Yeah,
he's like, this is easy. I'll just say whatever I want. No one even cares.
That's what he says. That's what he does. He says whatever he wants.
But anyway, I don't have a ton else tonight. I mean, I know we'll have
Darren's question about Reds games.
I know they've done stuff at the stadium in the past, like in some of the suite areas. I don't know if they've actually ever like taken the whole team to a game and like bought tickets for everybody and gone to a game.
Tonight was Rains and Reds, so you did have Luke Kandra out there and the female basketball player.
Lillian Hayes, yeah.
Thank you.
No, it was Ellie De La Cruz bobblehead night, so you know the place was going to be packed.
Yeah, as someone who's around the generation of these kids, if they aren't like diamond seats or right on the edge, I wouldn't even take them because the attention span, like they're going to get bored pretty quick at a Major League Baseball game.
That's the thing is like you buy the tickets, you make all the effort to get down there.
Yeah,
you're not going to sit there for all 9 innings.
No,
so
they
like,
would rather.
There's probably better time spent doing other stuff than everything that would involve. Now I know they've like when the Reds have been out of town, they've had like one of the dinners in one of the. I don't know if it what bar restaurant it was, but they've had like where the stadium's been empty and they have the lights on, they have UC stuff on the video boards and whatever. I know they've done that, but I don't know if they've ever actually done like a let's go to the game with all of the guys and their parents and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, I've asked some people like during the portal season, because it's in the heat of basketball season. I asked them, like, do you take these guys to basketball games for visits? I feel like that'd be pretty cool. And they're like, no, we don't we don't really do that. Like, there's meetings that have to go down, and we need to make sure that the scheme lines up and that everything's a fit. Going to sit somewhere and watch an event doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Right. For 2 hours of time where we just sit there and watch about. Yeah. I mean, I think it'd be fun, but I think they would look at it as we can do like 3 other things.
Yeah.
In the amount of time it would take for us to do this.
Now, if it's the crosstown shootout, or like if Kansas is in town, that might be a little different.
Oh yeah. If Kansas is in town, then you're on the Saturday, you're probably having a junior day.
Yeah.
For it, and bringing as many of your high level juniors that you can in for that type of an event.
Yeah.
I don't have. There's not really. I mean, Chad and I talked about basketball workouts last week. I think he talked about him and Aaron and Brent and Royer talked about it a bunch Monday night. So if you haven't had a chance to, I think Chad and I went for well over an hour on that last Thursday. I know the guys talked about that a bunch on Monday. So if you hadn't had a chance to catch up on those 2 episodes, please do that. There's a ton of basketball stuff there. Football is, outside of visits, we're kind of in this like not quite to the season yet. I know we're seeing a bunch of stuff on social media or lists and rankings and everything, which I still find hilarious. Like, I'm not even sure about everybody on UC's team. I couldn't really give you a great idea of what I think about Texas Tech or Iowa State right now. But we will certainly start to get into a lot more of that as the summer goes on. Before we get to higher ground, we will be efforting as many of our fellow 24/7 site operators like we did last summer for some Big 12 preview guests on some upcoming podcasts. I know with go back to the well on a lot of the guys that we had on last year. It makes it much, much easier than trying to find out if there's anyone worth talking to that covers Tulane or Tulsa or Temple or so. Be looking out for that. I know. Do you have a list yet for this weekend?
No, I do not. I've actually got some writers in the 247 circuit that are DMing me of players that are telling them they're going to be in Cincinnati this weekend. I would expect that to be out tomorrow. It's usually been the Thursday before, Wednesday or Thursday before. But I will get with my people. Your people. You have people? My people, as in Chad, but he's busy.
As in Chad. As in my
Shut up, Aaron. Get out.
let me talk to my people and then I'll get back to you on that. I don't know. I gotta clear some things first. But no, should be another good weekend. Weather's pretty awesome right now, so should be a good time having some guys and their families on campus. And I know that they can have visits one more weekend after this one. I'm not 100% sure if they're going to. They're going to end up having double digit more than likely without knowing this upcoming weekend, but they're going to likely end up having double digit visitors each weekend. So you're talking 30 plus guys. Mm-hmm. So, and of course some are already committed, but those visits are just as important. So stay locked into the site, stay locked into the Twitter. I will do my best to keep my eyes and ears up while I watch Clash of the Castle from Scotland this Saturday afternoon. Love a good mid afternoon PLE. So we'll have you covered, and I think that's about it. You got anything else? This is a football heavy show after two shows that were heavy in basketball with workouts and everything.
Yeah, keep expecting content. I'll have something up tomorrow, possibly in the next couple of days. I'm trying to line up some interviews, and then after this weekend, there will be more and more. So stay tuned. Basically, all the OV stuff and most of the commitment stuff when I have interviews is going to be VIP. So make sure you're subscribed to get all that information and hear what all these players have to say about UC, their OV experience, and the staff. So.
All right. Well, thank you, Keegan, for jumping in tonight for Chad. And thanks to Walt Stewart for joining us as well. That was a great interview. Had a lot of insightful things to say about his D-line group and the team as a whole as we head towards the 2024 season. And, of course, thanks again to the Holy Grail for being such a wonderful presenting sponsor of the BCJ podcast. That is all from us tonight, and look forward to seeing everybody back again next week.